morning, Fountain Street Chapel. I hope that your morning is good so far. I hope that you're comfortable there and excited to join us today. Because do you know what day it is? Me either. I just am not sure. Is it Sunday? Is it Thursday? Is it Monday? Is it the 17th, the 15th, the 21st? I am not sure these days. They just seem to all run together at times. But it is the day that we have to breathe and be alive and be together. And I do wonder how you're doing in the midst of it all. You know, as I've been talking with people this week, some people feel like they're really settling into this time now that we've been staying at home for 8 weeks. Others are just getting sick of it and want to get out. Others are really appreciating pieces of it, and others are really frustrated. There's a sense of foreboding for some and a sense of great hope for others. And for many of us, all of those are spectrums, and we find ourselves at different places along those spectrums at different times of day. Wherever you're at today, I'm glad you're here with us. And I hope you know that you can create the life of deeper meaning and greater value your heart desires. Help is available. It will take practice. So we're here to help each other today to practice together. You know what also is exciting? Did you know that as we've been doing this for 8 weeks now, the average number of views in our services is 350. 350 views for our chapel services when we had 60 people a week in person. It's exciting that this great expression of deeper meaning and greater value and help and practice is moving further out into the world. You are making an impact for good, so thank you. We have some announcements as we begin today. You'll see those on the screen. The Fountain Street online secret goods and services auction is ongoing now into June. So please take a look at that. See if there's some things you might like to purchase there. All the funds go to support Fountain Street Church. Note the free movie access again to the Hiroshima children's drawings, a story of hope and reconciliation. Use the code there on your screen to watch that. And then on May 31st, of course, is our Senior Minister Candidate Sunday when Reverend Mariella Perez-Simons will be with us. Previous to that, there'll be town hall meetings coming up this week. You should have received those in your email. If you haven't, find them on the website. And then on Wednesday, May 27 at 5 o'clock, we as a chapel community will have time specifically with Mariella. So mark that, Wednesday, May 27 at 5 o'clock, and I will be sending out more information regarding that. Our Life in the Pandemic comes from Jacqui Poehlman after this. Thank you. Did you know that Jacqui has our slides and has all year long? So we're so grateful to Jacqui for doing the slides and for now kind of coming out from behind the slides to share her life with us. I know when I had a chance to listen to it, it really spoke to me. And then after Jacqui, of course, is our marvelous chapel band doing a song that many of us have sung for a long time and will remember fondly. And I hope that you will get up, dance, and sing along.
Hey guys, I am coming at you from in my car, and I will explain a little bit more about why I'm doing this in my car in a little bit. When Andy asked me to do this a couple weeks ago, I had kind of a different idea in mind related to my son turning 13. But since most of you are my Facebook friends, you've probably already seen that there is a video of us screaming and being ridiculous because we did a big parade for my son's 13th birthday. And it was really awesome. But things have kind of shifted for me in the past couple days, and I wanted to share a little bit about that. So I don't know about you, but for the first few weeks of this pandemic, I was of the mindset of, this is only going to be a few weeks. Like, we can make it a few weeks. We made it through the polar vortex. That was 2 weeks of hell. This is 3 weeks of hell. Well, then the 3 weeks of hell became school is not going back to session. Okay, we can make it till the end of May. That's okay. And Jason shared a post about how coronavirus is spread, and that just kind of rocked my world and made me think about how this isn't going away. No, this is not going to be a short-term thing. This is not a temporary situation. This is our new normal. And what came out of that for me is that I had been using the pandemic as an excuse to avoid doing certain things and kind of allowing myself to get back into a lot of sort of self-soothing, not really productive behaviors. For instance, neglecting a lot of my own self-care, trying to be a mom, a school teacher, a worker, all simultaneously, and wondering why I was so burnt out. So part of those things, I remember Monica said something about reaching out to her therapist. And that kind of struck me too, because I wasn't in therapy at the time, but I'm like, if Monica's having trouble dealing with this, and Monica is awesome and cool and like everything I ever want to be in my life, then maybe I should go back to therapy. So I did. And my therapist uses a lot of Brene Brown stuff in her work. And one of the things that she had me do for homework was listen to an episode of Brene Brown's podcast. Well, I did. And then, of course, I remembered how awesome Brene Brown is. And so I listened to a podcast that she did with Glennon Doyle. And it was about Glennon's new book, which is called Untamed. And I immediately went and bought Glennon's book and devoured it. And it was a complete ass kicking for me. My kind of spiritual awakening came about 4 years ago when I realized that I'd spent a lot of my life playing really small and not getting that life of deeper meaning, greater value that we're all looking for. So I quit my job. I started working for myself. I got out of a bunch of relationships that weren't really serving me. And now I'm in a great one with Matthew, which you all know because you see us every week smiling and loving on each other. But this pandemic had been an excuse for me to keep playing small, to not do the things that I need to do to move myself forward in my business, not to move myself forward personally. So today I am in my car because it is not a screen. And granted, I'm on a screen right now, but after that, I'm going to go take a hike. And part of what I've realized for my self-care is, number one, I need to get off screens for a vast majority of my day when I'm not working. Number two, I've changed my work schedule, so now I only work 4 days a week instead of 7. So that those other 3 days I can be devoted to being mom. And I can't remember, am I on number 3 or number 4? That's how days have been going. I need to take better care of myself. And for me, that's come with quitting sugar. So I'm on day 5 of quitting sugar and quitting junky carbs, and I have a massive headache, but I already feel a lot better by doing that. And just making those small changes to do the things that are right for me and realize that I can't be sitting stuck when the pandemic is over, I can go back to doing all of those things that I should be doing. It's made me feel a little bit more sane. And this time period for me is always kind of a period of deep reflection. My son was born then. I've started and ended a lot of my significant relationships in this time. Spring has always been kind of a special time for me. And I think for me this year, that's what this is going to be. It's going to be the time where I quit playing small and I quit letting the pandemic keep me small. And I use this restriction that we're under as a source of greater creativity and greater personal growth for myself. So that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to keep this to about 5 minutes because I know I can ramble. So I am at 4:56, thanks to my new iPhone for telling me. So anyways, I hope you all are having a very good week. I love you all. I miss you all so much. And I'm going to go take a hike now. So have a happy Sunday. Bye-bye.
Everybody wants to rule the world. Aren't we feeling that today? The theme of today's service is the dying of personal salvation, chaos, and community. We've said frequently here in chapel that no one is coming to save you. And yet I would also add that you can't save yourself. I can't save myself. It takes all of us. It takes community. It takes working together. Thus the dying of personal salvation, as we see how connected during this time we really are, and how much we require one another, and how much we require social contact. As we move to our time of lighting the candles of remembering and of keeping, I invite us to hear first a reading around remembering from Umar Haque. Hear this reading. One of the greatest lessons we've forgotten is what a society really is. The word society comes from societas, which means a kind of companionship, a certain association with others, or at least the hunger, the willingness to. In America, you are made to battle everyone else for everything. Nothing is your right, really. You must fight bitterly for education, for health care, for a little bit of money, for food to eat, for a roof over your head. How can such people really be companions when they are busy being enemies, opponents, adversaries? So we remember some times that are like that. And then, as the light passes through the center and passes through us, we choose what we're going to keep. How are we going to companion rather than compete? I invite us to hear these words from Joanna Macy, who has coined the terms the great unraveling and the great turning. She says about when she began working for justice and doing climate work and other forms of social justice. She says, when I began this work, someone asked me, Joanna, why are you doing this? I thought I was doing it to make us more effective, working for global peace and justice, that we were doing the work to be better agents of change. But when I was asked that, the answer came right from my solar plexus. I'm doing this work so that when things fall apart, we will not turn on each other. So, she says, I think the biggest challenge now is to not buy into that and to be able to look at each other with trust, saying, here is a brother or sister or sibling brought by the intelligence of earth to be alive at this moment. Then this person can also, deep within them, have a care that life can go on. We've got to use our wits and by grace re-knit and find our way into some solidarity with one another. May that be what we keep, that we don't turn on each other, that we find solidarity with one another, even with those whom we seem to have such great differences with. I'm delighted to welcome John Willette back to do our meditation this week. And then our offering will be taken after that. I invite you to please consider giving generously to Fountain Street Church in this challenging time. Fountain Street Church stands for so much of what we stand for as we work to free the soul, grow the mind, and change the world. This is an exciting time in the church, and we want your investment in it in so many ways, including your financial investment, so that we can continue to live out this mission that is so vital to each one of us, to our community, and to the world. So please consider giving online or texting to give or mailing in a check to Fountain Street Church. And then that will be followed up by our teaching this week with special guest Rachel Hood, and then chapel members Emery Haley, Barbara Lash, Marshall Battani, Brad Miller, and Angie Walters.
Good morning. We're coming today from the Marywood campus, just a little bit off the beaten path, not too far from their sculpture garden. As you take a little inventory of your body, as you begin to prepare your helpful posture for meditation, as you begin to slow and steady your breathing, I'd like to offer a little reading this morning as a way to focus our thoughts. The reading comes from the book To Bless the Space Between Us, a book of blessings by John O'Donohue. And the particular blessing that I've selected is the blessing for a friend on the arrival of illness. It seems that at this time, relatively few of us are currently ill. But what we have is we are greatly concerned for our friends, for our families, for our community. And this blessing seems to speak to that moment. Now is the time of dark invitation, beyond a frontier you did not expect. Abruptly, your old life seems distant. You barely noticed how each day opened a path through fields never questioned, yet expected deep down to hold treasure. Now your time on earth becomes full of threat. Before your eyes, your future shrinks. You live absorbed in the day-to-day, so continuous with everything around you that you could forget you were separate. Now this dark companion has come between you. Distances have opened in your eyes. You feel that against your will a stranger has married your heart. Nothing before you made you feel so isolated and lost. When the reverberations of shock subside in you, may grace come to restore you to balance. May it shape a new space in your heart to embrace this illness as a teacher who has come to open your life to new worlds. May you find in yourself a courageous hospitality towards what is difficult, painful, and unknown. May you learn to use this illness as a lantern to illuminate the new qualities that will emerge in you. May the fragile harvesting of this slow light help you release whatever has become false in you. May you trust this light to clear a path through all the fog of old unease and anxiety until you feel arising within you a tranquility profound enough to call the storm to stillness. May you find the wisdom to listen to your illness. Ask it why it came, why it chose your friendship, where it wants to take you, where it wants you to know, what quality of space it wants to create in you, what you need to learn to become more fully yourself, that your presence may shine in the world. May you keep faith with your body, learning to see it as a holy sanctuary, which can bring this night wound gradually toward the healing and freedom of dawn. It's a blessing for a friend on the arrival of illness by John O'Donohue. I want to back up and take two stanzas that I think speak to something we have talked about a few times in the past. May you learn to use this illness as a lantern to illuminate the new qualities that will emerge in you. May the fragile harvesting of this slow light help to release whatever has become false in you. May you trust this light to clear a path through all the fog of old unease and anxiety until you feel arising within you a tranquility profound enough to call the storm to stillness. It seems in those lines that there's that recurring invitation. What of the old life, the fog of old unease and anxiety, are we ready to release this day? And what of a new life? What can this moment be a lantern to illuminate the new qualities that will emerge in us? What in this new day can we accept? Thank you, and I'll remind you, you are beloved exactly as you are.
So I'm really excited today about our teaching around chaos and compassion. Excited to have a group of folks here talking about this, and also excited to have State Representative Rachel Hood with us from the 76th District. Also one of the most gerrymandered districts, I do believe, in the state, looking at the map of it this week. As I said, our theme is chaos and compassion, which we brought in to both talk about life during this time in general, but there's been a lot of conversation also and concern about the events in Lansing over the past month. And we're recording this on Thursday, and I know there's another planned one maybe going on right now.
Right now.
Yeah. So Rachel, I really want to thank you for taking the time out to be with us. I want to thank you for your service. It can be a thankless job, and we're so glad you're doing that on behalf of us in the state of Michigan and those of us who live in your district. I just want to know, you're a representative. You have children at home. Your family has a small business. How are you coping in these days, and what is sustaining you in these times?
Well, thank you, Andy, for the introduction and for your kind words and for the care that you represent from Fountain Street Church and the care provided by all of the people who are around the table here. Dave and the girls and I are doing pretty well so far. We're thankful for continued health of our parents and our children. We are getting deeper into the sandwich years here, and and so we are very concerned for my folks. I think separation from them, they're here with us in Grand Rapids, and separation from them and the caution around protecting them has been a big stress for us. We certainly are concerned about the business, although, and that is a space that we just that stress you have to put on the shelf. There are only so many things you can do in these circumstances, but to date, operating a good carryout business has been keeping things afloat, and we're hopeful that the federal government will make some changes to the PPP loans that make it a better fit for restaurants and different food operations that are likely to open up slowly and perhaps a little later than other parts of the economy. And the work in Lansing has been stressful, but I try to find the opportunities in it as well. I think that this, in some ways, this hastens and accelerates changes that needed to happen, old skin that society needed to shed. So I try to find those glimmers of hope and hold to those. And then, you mentioned the events that were scheduled today. The hate gives me a lot of solace to know that that's a really small group of people here in the state. And what I'm listening to and guided by are the numbers in polling, anticipating that there's somewhere between 60 and 75% support for the actions that have been taken by Governor Whitmer and other governors who have been leading strategically, Andrew Cuomo and the governor from Ohio. So we choose who we focus on and how we move forward in each day. We choose to leave some things on the table and come back to explore it later as we have more information. And
great. Well, thanks for that insight about where you're at, and so many pieces of that we can relate to. I just want to open it up to the group now for any conversation about where you're at and where you connect with what Rachel has said, or directions you want to take this conversation.
I really connect with that idea, that positive idea that there are some good things going on. And I appreciate the ability to see, I see this in my students, because I'm teaching online right now at Grand Valley, that, you know, this incredible resilience to meet this moment. My students will overwhelmingly say that, oh, well, this hasn't had a great impact on me. It's not that bad. And then they'll go on to describe what's happening. And it's like, oh my God, so much is happening to them. But they're meeting the challenge. And I think it's easy to get focused. For me, it's really easy to get focused via social media on the ugliness that's out there. But so important to remember for me, and I got to constantly remind myself that this is a small minority of people who are behaving this way. So I really appreciate hearing that yeah, that kind of resilience is out there and happening, and we can build on that, I think.
I will say one of the dark spots has been the failure to really fully center people who are most harmed by these events, and particularly communities of color. It was disheartening to see the Capitol Commission pass the buck on, you know, this issue around violence in the state capitol, guns in the state capitol. Knowing how painful that is to the many members who are people of color, who are, you know, terribly traumatized and frightened by the images and the behavior that we saw in front of the Capitol last week. And to know that, you know, that's a pain that they live with on a daily basis, and to see all of that hate coming out again in these circumstances is painful. And it's important. I think that one thing I've noticed is that while we have this, you know, as legislators, we have this very loud minority in our inboxes, and there's this fight around who we're going to center our discussions on, our policy solutions on. Are we going to center it on the people who aren't communicating with us because they support the governor and support public health and the protection of individuals, and acknowledge the, you know, the life forces that we have to protect here? Or are we going to center it on the, you know, loud minority of individuals who are in our inboxes, pressing us to race back into the economy with, you know, with less regard for science, more regard for, you know, privileged people to get back to their jobs? That the hate in that space is very painful to see.
Well, I actually wanted to say, so I work with the Grand Rapids African American Health Institute. I've worked with them for about 5 years doing PR, communications, marketing, fundraising. And I will say that for, you know, when we were in times of economic kind of, you know, we were doing well, right? Economy's chugging along, Michigan Nice is in full force. People acknowledge that there's inequity. They acknowledge it in a very detached way. And I think this crisis has shined like a bright light on the ugly side of it, and is really making people aware. And even some of the protests that we see, as much as I dislike what is happening, I am, I guess, not happy, but that it's open, that it's ugly, that we can see it, that we can't, you know, like there's no looking away from it. And so in a way, it is like a call to action for all of us. You know, as ugly as some of that is, we can disagree with it. We get on Facebook and post about it, or share with our other like-minded liberals. And, you know, I think like-minded liberals have been somewhat complacent,
Mm.
you know, and so I haven't seen a lot of true activism. And I think that in a way, this chaos and shining a bright light on some of this can maybe make us all wake up a little bit and say, we want something different. You know, yes, that's a small minority, but they drown us out. And so how can we, you know, share, like, combine those 70% of voices and drown them out? How can we make change at the legislative level? How can we fight for our brown and black, you know, brothers and sisters and community members, and really, like, use this moment in time when we all have got a pause to not pause,
Yeah.
right?
And anything but is really white supremacy, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think having lived in, you know, Chicago area where there's much more diversity, in Michigan, in Grand Rapids, this is my only experience in Michigan, really, a little bit in Detroit, but, you know, there's a politeness that sometimes keeps people from voicing and, like, raising their voices.
Yeah.
And so I'm always one to, like, you know, what can we do? How can we take this moment? Fountain Street, how can we be a force in our community? You know, if we're feeling all this angst and we're feeling this empathy for our neighbors, what do we do right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, we have to put words to it in order to change the in order to recenter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
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 I mean,
Brad, you had your hand up on this.
Yes, I agree with a lot of what has been said already. Hi, Rachel. How are you doing?
Hi, Fred.
Hey.
Great to see you.
I was especially excited when Andy invited me because we've worked together on environmental issues and things in the past. Things are moving on. I know they're remotely being done right now. This idea of isolation or self-quarantine that we're going through. We are probably people of privilege that are weathering it better than others, and that's not lost on any of us here. But I think that from guns in the Capitol or any of the other issues we debate nationally with vaccines, there's this issue you raised, Rachel, of accountability or responsibility. And I think that's almost, to me, more insidious than any of the other issues, is that while something of this magnitude is occurring, that no one feels, from the Capitol Commission to the White House, that overwhelming responsibility to take charge of this issue and make sure that people are not down on the ground threatened in the state capitol with violence or any number of other houses throughout the country. We are a free society, but I believe there's also the right to be free but not stupid or harmful to our fellow citizens. So I guess, you know, I keep feeling a yearning for a little tougher approach.
And it's about whose freedom are we fighting for, right? We're fighting for the freedom of people to take, to open carry assault rifles, or are we fighting for the freedom of, a Black female legislator to go to work and do her job and represent the 90,000 people in her district? Are we fighting for, the school teacher who wants her school kids to be able to enjoy the state capitol and feel safe and understand that this is their capital, right? Whose capital is this? Is it a capital for people with guns, or is it a capital for people who want to make great policy for our communities to thrive. A capital for people who want to learn about our history and celebrate the Civil War heroes who went to fight for the freedom of slaves and make sure that the country remained whole. We really, we have a choice right now, and ignoring it and backing into our comfort and failing to give voice to the fact that this is our capital is failing everybody in the state. It's
And that
failing our
choice,
future.
yeah, that choice and that privilege also plays out in then how are we opening up? How are we, moving to open things? Because for the most part, it's going to least affect people like me, who can continue to work at home, who are not in a vulnerable population. But for people who it means they have to go out to work, they have to expose themselves. They may be immunocompromised already, but don't have a choice. Again, there's that privilege and oppression and marginalized piece that is at play in ways that are less obvious than the guns in the Capitol.
My thought was moving away from the Capitol a little bit, but still on this theme of accountability and responsibility. And in my experience, that's taken on kind of moving away from this government and leadership responsibility. And I've honestly been really impressed with how grassroots it's become in the midst of this, how much individual small community groups have banded together to provide aid for each other. I'm a scientist, I'm a graduate student. And a lot of us are really concerned about the amount of misinformation and lack of scientific input in the types of news and the media that's coming even from the government and from the president, all the way down to our local level. But one of the things that we've done is something we probably should have had for a long time, and this has kind of spurred us into that. But we've created a social learning group on Facebook where scientists in West Michigan are coming together, and we're curating the content, and we're providing, multi-time weekly posts where we've vetted the science, and, we're making outreach videos to our friends and family and saying, if you want to know the truth about what's going on, the science behind it, reach out to us. We are your friends, your neighbors, your family members, and we know actually what's going on, not just, this is the Fox News piece, but we've read the literature, we've seen, analyzed it for ourselves, and we'd love to discuss the truth with you. And we talked about, why were we losing to misinformation? And it's because we weren't making ourselves accessible. And so we've tried to, but that's just one example. I mean, all the community aid groups. I had one friend who I've been taking to get groceries every couple of weeks because they rely on public transport and it's been unreliable and they don't have a car. And every time I get this profuse thanks from them, and they would say, why would you do this, for me? Why would you expose yourself to me and to the grocery store? And, and to me, it was just funny. I'm like, don't thank me. This is not a sacrifice from me. This is just me paying forward all the people in my life that made sure I didn't starve when I was in a really unfortunate position myself. And I think a lot of people have taken that sentiment to heart lately. And I've been really to see just individuals reaching out to each other. And I hope that trend continues, because I think really the strength in our compassion as a society comes from that interpersonal one-on-one aid rather than down from the government. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love to see policies for universal health care and basic income and these things, but I think that they can be a lot stronger of an impact from the individuals.
Yeah, and I think that's what this has exposed a lot. Neighbors helping neighbors, communities coming together, because we can't rely on our government to take care of us right now. I mean, there's a little bit of stimulus money, but it's really not enough to support each other. And so I'm seeing it in communities. I work with a civic crowdfunding platform, and we across Michigan have seen communities come together and say, hey, we are going to save our main street and let's put a program together. We're not going to wait for the Small Business Administration to try to bail us out. Like, we have to do this ourselves. And I think that's that kind of resiliency and the importance of those hyper-local neighborhood community organizations, like Emery was saying, to really make a difference. And then that groundswell will hopefully grow and drown out all that kind of hate and dominating corporate profit-driven, society that we've kind of landed in right now.
A quiet force of civic action, right? Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. Yeah. Angie looked like she was trying to.
Yeah.
Okay. The same tangent of just the power of the individuals. I think that there's so much we can do as individuals, even though we may feel powerless and like things going on, but I know it helps me to feel better if I can do something, even if it's little. But I've also noticed, seeing on like my Facebook feed and stuff, so many people realizing and coming awake to the inequalities and just how they affect so many people, and like waking up to it, but then feeling like, well, what can I do? As individuals, you can feel overwhelmed. Like, I now recognize this and I see it, but now I don't know what to do. And so I just want to encourage people that there's a lot that you can do as an individual. Just speaking out in your own, helping raise awareness about the inequalities, but also, what can you be reading? What can you be educating yourself on? What work can you do inside yourself, in your school district, and within your neighborhood? There's so many just things as individuals that might seem little, but it is really amazing what all of those little actions can build up to. So I just really encourage people. I'm happy to talk more about that with anybody at any time, but that boosts me during hard times when I feel hopeless, is to find those actions that you can do within your own community.
Yeah.
Emery, thank you for being here. And thank you for your service.
It's an honor to be here, and you're filling my cup, so let's keep going.
Well, we've only got a few more minutes left here. So what's burning on your hearts and minds that you want to get out there yet? Yeah, Marshall.
I just want to throw out, advocate for an idea, an old idea, because there's so much talk these days about freedom, and that devolves into my freedom versus your freedom kind of thing. And so this idea, it's an older idea of what liberty is, and the idea that was enshrined in our Constitution is the idea of liberty is really a group phenomenon. It's not an individual phenomenon. It's liberty is to be free from artificial social restraint, namely the monarchy. In our case, we might substitute capitalism or some other kind of artificial social restraint. So it's a very powerful idea, and it's really hard for people to get. And I just want to keep throwing it out there whenever I get a chance, is that freedom, we've tended to adopt an idea of freedom in our individualistic culture that is really alienation. It's really freedom, the idea of freedom from others. When in fact, true freedom or liberty is really a group phenomenon and is what a society is. And so it's an old idea, and I think we've forgotten it, and I'd like to just sort of inject that into things. So that's it.
Yeah, that's powerful. I read a phrase recently that our culture is happy to make us and wants to make us happy, isolated individuals.
I saw a Washington Post article recently saying Walden, Henry David Thoreau's Walden, may be the most famous act of social distancing. It's also a lesson on the importance of community. So it's not either or. It's experimentation with the both and how to hold it all. And hopefully you can do that in the political world while we do that from our perspectives.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Politics, as we know, can get a bad name, but in the end, it's just about how we organize ourselves and especially how we organize our communities for the common good. So again, Rachel, we thank you for doing that for us, on behalf of us, with us, and for your time here today with Fountain Street Chapel.
Well, thank you all for your great stories relating the ways that people, yourselves or other people around you, are taking action. Thank you for joining me in recognizing the need to lift up positive voices and solutions and pathways forward that that can serve all of us in the state of Michigan. And I look forward to hearing more from you and from all the folks at Fountain Street who are wonderful people and delivering light into the world every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Rachel. Bye, everybody.
Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. Even while we sleep, we will find you acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. Everybody wants to rule the world. It's my own design. It's my own remorse. Help me to decide. Help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule the world. There's a room where the light
Thank you again to our marvelous chapel band. I hope you're leaving today's service with a sense that your life has deeper meaning and has greater value. I know that I and my life has deeper value and greater meaning because I've been here with you today. You enrich me, we enrich one another. Know that you are loved no matter who you are, no matter where you are on life's journey. And we need your voice in this community, in this world. So bring all of you to bear on those around you and on the situations around you. Your unique voice is what is needed and what is welcome in this time and in this place for the healing of the world. Go in peace, friends. Go in love. Go in peace and love, and we will see you next week.